Hey guys, today we're going to continue Unit 4 and we're going to finish lessons 4C and 4D. And the topic is about procrastination. Also, we're going to study the grammar spot present perfect versus present perfect continuous. We're going to review the difference between present perfect tense and simple past tense and understand the difference and when we have to use both verb tenses, right? To start, let's read together about what Adam Grant said about procrastination, right? Pay attention. Procrastinating is a vice when it comes to productivity, but it can be a virtue for creativity. So, what is procrastination? Do you have any idea? When you procrastinate, you let something you have been doing to do that later. Maybe because you are involved in other activities or you are busy, sometimes you have something to do, or sometimes people say it is laziness. Are you a lazy person? Do you postpone? Do you put off? Do you procrastinate everything that you have to do, like homework, like housework, anything that you have to do? Or by the time you get something to do, you go there and get it and you do it. Are you like this? Or are you a procrastinator? So let's study about this topic now. We have some questions about this topic. Let's pay attention to them. Number one, do you consider yourself a creative or creativity person? Which of these words best matches here to complete the question? Number two, describe three jobs that require a lot of creative or creativity. Which one is the best to match this question? Would you like to do any of these jobs? And number three, which word do you complete here? What would you prefer to create, creative or creativity? A painting or a hit song? Why? So, the answer for question number one, you say, do you consider yourself a creative person? Creative means an adjective, a quality. So, are you a creative person? The answer for number two is describe three jobs that require a lot of creativity. Would you like to do any of these jobs? So here we use the word creativity because I'm talking about the noun. So what jobs, in your opinion, require a lot of creativity? There are a lot of careers, a lot of professionals that we can say they have a lot of creativity. So, which of these jobs do you consider a creative career? And of course, there are lots of other professionals that we can say they have a lot of creativity. But which one do you consider that for you? A very creative job. A video game designer, the graphic designer, the artist, a teacher. So, engineers, which one is a very creative career for you? Now let's check number three. What would you prefer to create, to creative, or to creativity? A painting or a hit song? Why? The last one, number three, the answer is what would you prefer to create? Here we are using the verb to create. All right? So as you can see, we have three words. These words are a word family. And when we have a word family, we have other words coming from the basic form, right? The verb is the basic form to create. But then we have create as a verb. So we have creativity, that is the noun. And finally, we have creative, that is the adjective. Let's go ahead. So let's check more examples about word families. In this exercise, you have a chart with the words, and some of them are verbs, others are nouns or adjectives. Now we're going to check by writing here the words adjective, noun, and verb for each column. So let's identify. Number one is about verbs. We have achieve, create, so these are verbs. Number two, we have achievement, creativity. Which words are they? They are nouns, all right? The names of the things, right? And the nouns come from the verb. Number three are the adjectives. So we have achievable, creative. Let's listen to these words.
1. Verb. 2. Noun. 3. Adjective. Achieve, achievement, achievable. Create, creativity, creative. Consider, consideration, considerate. Criticize, criticism, critical. Persuade, persuasion, persuasive. Rely, reliability, reliable. Risk, risk, risky. Succeed, success, successful.
Going on, let's do the exercise. You're going to complete the text here with the adjective or the noun form of the verbs in parentheses. Remember, we are talking about the word families, and the words you're going to complete are coming from these verbs. In number one, we have to use succeed. So you are going to change into an adjective or a noun, right? The same way for numbers 2, create. Number 3, rely. Number 4, consider. Number 5, risk. And 6, achieve. Number 7, the verb is persuade. And the last one, number 8, the verb is criticize. So let's read the text and let's do the exercise together. So you're going to complete with an adjective or a noun, right? How to meet deadlines. You have lots of deadlines, right? About your homework, about your tests. So the answer for number one is to be successful at school or at work. You have to be hardworking, smart, and which is the word that you complete using the basic form, the verb create. The answer is creative. Number three, you have to complete the word coming from the verb rely. What is also important coming from rely? Let's check. The answer for number three is reliability. Here are a few things you should take into, and the word comes from the verb consider. So which word best completes here? Let's check. Number 4, again, it is the noun. So you should take into consideration. All right? The next one, number 5, you have to complete the word coming from the verb risk. So pay attention to the context so that you can complete it. Let's check. First of all, put your deadlines on your calendar. Trusting your memory can be, let's check. The answer for number 5 is risky. So you add the suffix y when you change the verb into an adjective, right? So you say that trusting your memory can be risky. Next one is number 6. Sometimes deadlines may not be. You have to complete the word from the base form achieve. Are you going to complete with a noun, achievement, or the adjective achievable? Let's check. So number 6 is achievable, the adjective, right? Continue. If so, consider asking for an extension, even if you have to be a little. What do you complete here? What is the word coming from the verb persuade? The answer is persuasive. So you have to be a little persuasive. Continue number 8, the last one. If you find yourself procrastinating, maybe you're afraid of your work. Remember, nobody's perfect, so you have to complete by using the word from the verb criticize. Which word do you complete here? So the answer for number 8 is criticism, right? So maybe you're afraid of people's criticism of your work. Remember, nobody's perfect. So let's go ahead. Now let's read the text about the topic procrastination and let's discover why it can sometimes be a good thing, right? Is it possible to be good, to be procrastinator? So before starting the reading, I want to check with you the meaning of the word procrastination, right? So let's take a look. Remember that we studied about the word families? So we have the basic form of the word. Here it's the verb procrastinate. And then we have the other words that come from the basic form. We have the noun that it can be related to a thing, procrastination. And we have the noun related to a person, the procrastinator, the person who procrastinates. And then the adjective that is procrastinated. So let's go ahead in the reading. So let's start reading. Procrastination and creativity, the new link. Friends who know me well can always tell when I'm working to a deadline in an article or essay. Is it because I don't answer my phone or because they never see me out and about? No, it's because my house is always impeccably neat, my nails beautifully painted, and my desk perfectly organized. I see you've been doing the housework. When's the article due? They say, or wow, you put all your books in alphabetical order. When do you have to hand the essay in? Yes, I'm a procrastinator, and I'm not alone. Many of us feel extremely guilt for putting off important tasks, but recent research has shown that procrastination is in fact fantastic for creativity. Psychologist Adam Grant became interested in this area a few years ago when he found out that one of his most creative students, Jinha Shan, was a chronic procrastinator. Grant and Shan have been studying the link between procrastination and creativity ever since, and they've conducted a great deal of research. In one study, they asked a group of people to submit new business ideas. The people who played games like Minesweeper or Solitaire for 5 minutes before thinking about the task had the most creative ideas. Professor Grant explains that procrastination lets the mind wander, and the ideas we have after procrastinating are more creative and innovative than the more conventional ideas we have when we start a task right away. He also claims that some of the greatest achievements of human history are examples of procrastination. For example, it took Leonardo da Vinci 16 years to complete the Mona Lisa because he kept getting distracted by other things. So, the next time you have an essay due or a deadline at work, spend 5 minutes doing something completely unrelated. The creative ideas you have afterwards may change the world. So let's review. Procrastination means when you let something to be done later. You put it off, you postpone, you cancel the action and do it later. This is procrastination, right? Going ahead in the text, we have some words here, as you can see, underlined in red or blue, right? So, which verb tenses are these? Let's identify. I see you've been doing, and the other one in red is Grant and Sean have been studying the link. The ones that are underlined in blue are wow, you've put all your books in alphabetical order. Another is but recent research has shown. And the last one, and they've conducted. So let's identify the verb tenses underlined. The ones that are in red, they are in present perfect continuous tense. And the ones in blue are the present perfect simple. What's the difference? The sentences here in the text that are underlined in red, you've been doing, Ren and she have been studying, these are present perfect continuous and they talk about action, right? So the person is doing something. So they have been doing an action. They continue doing the same thing they have started in the past. You see? So when we have present perfect continuous tense, the structure is subject plus the verb have or has for he, she, it, plus the verb in the past participle being, plus the verb, the main verb in the ing form, that is the present participle or the gerund. So, we have an example here. Bob has been studying hard for his final exams. He completed the action? No, he is continue doing that. He has been doing that. Bob has been studying hard for his final exams. It represents the action. Bob started studying hard for his final exams and he is continue doing that up to the present moment, right? Another example, we've been preparing all the details for the party. It means that we started preparing in the past and we have been doing the same thing until now. We are continuing the action. That is the present perfect continuous tense. What about present perfect simple? The sentences here that are underlined in blue. Let's read the examples. Wow, you've put all your books in alphabetical order. You've put. You've, it's the contraction of you have. You have put. You've put. So, I have the subject, you, plus the verb have in the contraction, you, and we have the verb put in the past participle form. So, the present perfect simple talks about results of the action, right? So the idea is the person has done something. Sometimes the action is completed or sometimes it continues up to the present moment. But the difference between the present perfect continuous and the present perfect simple is when we talk about results, it's the simple. When we talk about the action, emphasize the action is continue being done. I'm talking about present perfect continuous. That's the difference. We have some examples here. Bob has done all his homework. Or Bob's done everything all by himself. It means Bob's done the contraction of Bob has. And we are talking about present perfect simple, right? Talking about emphasizing the result of the action, all right? Sometimes the idea is the action is over, completed. We have a result of the action, right? He has done all his homework. He finished. He completed. Okay? That's the difference. More examples. We have made delicious pies for the party. We've made a chocolate cake too. So both actions here we are using the present perfect simple, have, contraction of have, with, plus the verb in the past participle. We are talking about the results of our action. Alright? I say that we have made delicious pies for the party. We completed, we finished a lot of pies, right? And we have made a chocolate cake too. So we completed the action, okay? So that's the idea of present perfect simple. Important tasks does the writer always leave to the last minute? Do you remember? So which are the things, the tasks that she postpones, that she procrastinates a lot? She says, friends who know me well can always tell when I'm working to a deadline on an article or essay. So this is it for number one, right? The important tasks the writer always leaves to the last minute. Question number two is about the activities that she does to put off completing these tasks. So which are they? Which activities does she do to put off, to procrastinate completing these tasks? Remember when she says, it's because my house is always impeccably neat, the nails beautifully painted, and the desk perfectly organized? So, what does she do? She does housework, paints her nails, and organizes her desk. Another question is about the link between creativity and procrastination. So, how do the researchers explain the link between procrastination and creativity? Procrastination lets the mind wander. It means vague when you are feeling like if you were in another planet, right? The last question here is, how long does the writer suggest we procrastinate for? Do you remember here in the text? The answer is in the last paragraph when the author says, the next time you have an essay due or a deadline at work, spend 5 minutes doing something completely unrelated. The creative ideas you have afterwards may change the world. So she suggests about 5 minutes, right? But be careful because sometimes procrastination becomes a bad habit. And what to do to avoid this problem in your life? Let's watch a video to get some solutions for this problem. Exercise number 3, we have two pictures and you're going to pay attention to them and recognize which sentence emphasizes the result of a completed action and which sentence emphasizes the action, right? Which may be or may not be completed. Picture letter A. I see you've been doing the housework. Remember, you have contraction you plus the verb to be in the past participle been and the main verb in the present participle in the gerund, the ing form. So I say you've been doing. This is present perfect continuous. And letter B, I see you've done the housework. It's so neat. Here we have you've done, you've contraction of you have plus the verb do in the past participle. So here we have the present perfect simple. Which one represents a completed action, A or B? Letter B, right? So when I say I see you've done, I'm talking about the action is over, the action is completed. In letter A, the sentence here is the present perfect continuous and it emphasizes the action. It can be or it cannot be completed, right? So let's review the present perfect and the past forms. Present perfect simple. I've finished my homework. Let's have dinner. She's always been extremely creative. Present perfect continuous. I've been studying all morning. How long have you been waiting? Remember, present perfect simple indicates the action is over and the emphasis is on the result, whereas present perfect continuous emphasizes the action. Sometimes it can be completed, sometimes it cannot. Going ahead, we have the difference between the present perfect and the simple past tense. Examples. I bought a new laptop. I bought a new laptop yesterday. So what is the difference? So when we emphasize the action, not the time, I use the present perfect tense. But when I want to emphasize the action and the time, I use simple past tense when I mention the time. So I say, I bought a new laptop yesterday. All right? You mention the time. When you use present perfect, you don't mention the time. That's the difference. And what's the difference between present perfect simple and present perfect continuous? Remember, present perfect simple emphasizes the result of the action, and continuous emphasizes the action, right? Take a look at the examples. He's already cleaned the house and it looks great. He's been cleaning the house, so he's tired now. You see? Let's take a look about the present perfect simple. Pay attention to that. So let's start talking about the present perfect simple. It has three functions. The first one, past events. The second one, recent past events. And number three, unfinished states. What about the past events? Take a look. To understand the past events, take a look at this timeline. We have the past on the left, the present in the middle, and the future on the right. So pay attention. So, talking about the past, present, and future, we are involving situations that are part of the present perfect simple. The present perfect tense simple form, we have a situation that happened in the past, but you don't know when it happened. You know that something happened since you were born, for example, and it continues up to the present moment. Now let's pay attention to this example. You say, I've been to Australia. I don't know when you went there, but I know that sometime in the past you went to Australia. So we use the present perfect simple to illustrate the time in the past that you did an action. Be careful because when we say I've been to Australia, it's something that you returned. And when you say I've gone to Australia, it means that you are still there in Australia and you didn't come back. That's the difference, right? Now let's talk about the second function of the present perfect simple, right? That is to talk about recent past events. Mom, have you finished cooking dinner? And the mother says, yes, boys, I've made your favorite. Stir-fried frog legs. Take a look at the man and the boys. So remember, when we ask questions using yet, and we emphasize the sentences by using just, like these examples, we are talking about something that has been done recently, right? I ask, have you finished cooking dinner yet? Yet in the end of the question means that you have completed, okay? And when the mother says, I've just made your favorite, when she says just, it means to emphasize the action has been finished recently, right? And now let's talk about the third function of present perfect simple, that is unfinished situations. Take a look at this example. We've known each other for 2 weeks now, and the man says, "Do you want to marry me?" Now the girl's reaction. She escaped, right? So remember, when we have sentences that we use for, we talk about the total duration of the time. So the total duration of the time they have known each other is about 2 weeks. So they have known each other for 2 weeks. When we use for, we talk about the duration of the time. And we can also use since. We can say that we've known each other since last Saturday. Alright? So, pay attention now to more examples about it. So, when we talk about the past, we just used to talk about a time in the past, emphasizing when it happened, right? Take a look at this example. The mother asks, "How was your date, honey?" The date was finished completely. Remember in the restaurant the boy crying a lot? And he says, "We broke up." So broke is the past tense of break. So they ended the relationship, right? Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. So all the sentences here are about the past tense, right? Simple past tense. Now let's study about the form for present perfect simple statements. Pay attention to the structure. Subject plus have, has, or the negative form, plus never, just, already, the expressions that we use, the adverbs, plus the past participle, plus the complement, and we can also use in the end for or since or yet, right? So take a look at the example. I, the subject, contraction of have, I, plus been, the past participle, and the complement, to Australia. So I've been to Australia. In the negative, I can say I've never been to America or I haven't made dinner yet, for example. When we use never, the verb is not in the negative. So when we say haven't, we can't use never together, right? So there are two forms of saying a negative sentence. I've never or I haven't plus the verb in the participle. Okay? The form for the present perfect simple in questions. What do? We just invert the order. I ask have or has before the subject. So I can have a double H questions using the double H, how, example, where, plus have or has plus the subject plus the past participle and the complement. Or I can use has for he, she, it. Or it can be a negative sentence and I ask using ever to talk about at any time. Double H questions, words, and for are for open questions. Ever, yet, and time words are for yes, no questions. Remember that. So, when you ask questions using the present perfect simple, attention to that. Example, have you ever been to Australia? So, pay attention to the example. Have you ever been to Australia? The verb have before the subject, you. The word ever, the participle of the verb to be, been, and the complement to Australia. And we have other questions here that are, have you finished cooking dinner yet? Both questions here are yes, no questions. Your answer is yes, I have, no, I haven't. But when we have this question, how long have we known each other for? In this question, double H question, we are asking for the information about the time, the duration of time that we have known. So this is a question that requires a longer answer. So as a review, We use present perfect simple to talk about past events that you don't mention the time. You can also talk about recent past events and unfinished states. Whereas the past simple, we know the time and we use to talk about finished events, action that is completed. Did you understand? So let's review the present perfect tense and the past forms. Listen.
4.9. Have you been here before? We haven't had dinner yet. I've been looking for a new job since the summer. The kitchen's a mess because we've been cooking. I've wanted to go for months. There has been a bad accident on the highway.
Present perfect. We form the present perfect with have or has plus the past participle, and we use with these functions. Let's remember to talk about past experiences in your life without saying when they happen. You don't mention the time. Example, I've been to Mexico several times, but I've never been to Brazil. In this sentence, you say that you have been to Mexico a lot of times, several times, but you don't say when it happens. Another function to talk about complete or incomplete past actions. We use already, yet, and still. Examples. They've already bought their mother a birthday present. I haven't spoken to Mike yet. I still haven't spoken to Mike. Remember, when we talk about something that is complete or incomplete past actions, we use already, yet. Remember that already is more common in the middle of the sentence, and yet more common in the end of the sentences. Already for affirmative sentences, yet for the negative, right? And questions I can use already or yet. I can use both. The third function is to talk about actions or states that start in the past and continue in the present, especially with the for and since. Example, Adams worked here for 20 years, or Adams worked here since 1998. Remember that when we use for, we talk about the total duration of the time. And since we talk about when the action started, when the action began, right? Adams worked is the contraction of Adam has worked, right? The last one here is to talk about past actions that have an effect on the present. Example, I've left my job. Now I'm working as a freelance journalist. You see? Now let's go ahead in the present perfect form versus the simple past tense. So what's the difference between the present perfect and simple past? Remember, we use the simple past to talk about finished actions or states in the past. Simple past, example, I lived in London for 3 years, but now I live in Paris. Present perfect, I've lived in London for 3 years. I still live there, right? So this is the difference. Simple past, the action is over, finished. And the present perfect, it can be completed or not. You can still be doing the action, right? Next, to talk about recent past actions. Examples, I bought a car recently. I just handed in my essay. When we talk about actions that happened recently, I use the simple past tense. And I use adverbs like recently, all right, just. Another, to talk about finished actions when we know when they happen. We mention the time in the simple past. In the simple past, take a look at the example. They saw the new Star Wars movie on Saturday. We know when, on Saturday. And with the present perfect tense, they've seen the new Star Wars movie. We don't know when. Remember the difference. Simple past we use when we mention the time. We know when the action happened, right? Let's go ahead. In the present perfect continuous, remember that present perfect simple and continuous have a difference, right? Let's take a look. We form the present perfect continuous with have plus been plus the ing form of the verb. We use the present perfect continuous this way in these functions. The first one, to talk about longer or repeated actions that started in the past and continue in the present. Example, we've been waiting for the bus for 45 minutes, or we've been waiting for the bus since 1 p.m. Remember the difference. For to describe the total duration of the time, and since to describe when the action began, when the action started. The last function about present perfect continuous is to talk about a longer action in the past that has an effect on the present. Example, I'm out of breath because I've been running. Now let's check the difference between present perfect simple and present perfect continuous. Let's remember, we use the present perfect simple when the action is complete. We use the present perfect continuous when the action is still taking place. Examples, I've written an essay. The essay is finished. I've been writing an essay. I'm still writing the essay. So that's the difference. Present perfect simple, the action is over, completed. And the present perfect continuous, the action is still happening. Present perfect simple emphasizes the result, whereas the present perfect continuous emphasizes the action, right? We can use both forms to talk about the duration of an action that starts in the past and continues in the present with the verbs like live, work, and study, right? Examples? I've lived here for 10 years, or I've lived here since 2010. This is the present perfect simple. And the continuous. I've been living here for 10 years, or I've been living here since 2010. We don't use the present perfect continuous with the state verbs. Example, I've known Melanie for a long time. Not, I've been knowing Melanie for a long time. Let's practice a little bit about the difference between present perfect simple and continuous. Number one, choose the correct options to complete the sentences. Number one, I've preferred or I've been preferring to bike to work for a couple of years. Which one is the best option? Number two, how long did you live or how long have you lived in New York before you moved or before you have moved? Number three, we've been or we went to the museum earlier today. Four, it's the best movie I've ever seen or I've ever been seeing. 5. I've been sitting or I've sat in the school waiting room for 3 hours and I'm still waiting. 6. They've been deciding or they've decided to get married, so they're very excited and happy. Remember, the present perfect simple is when we talk about a situation that can be completed or not. Present perfect continuous is an action that the action is up to the present moment. The person is still doing the action, right? And the simple past tense, the action is over, finished, completed, and you mentioned the time. So here are the answers. Number one, present perfect simple. You talk about the total duration of the time that you have preferred to bike to work. That is, for a couple of years. Number two, in both sentences we use the simple past tense. In the question, with the auxiliary verb did you live? How long did you live in New York? Before you moved, right? The action is complete. That's why we use the simple past tense. Number three, the answer is we went to the museum earlier today. So we mentioned the time, earlier today. When did I go to the museum? When did you go to the museum? And then you say, we went to the museum earlier today. So, earlier today indicates the time of the action, when the action happened. That's why I use the simple past form, right? Number 4, the answer is, it's the best movie I've ever seen. Not I've ever been seen. I use the present perfect simple. Here I'm talking about a situation that is over, finished. I saw a movie in the past, right? But I don't mention the time. That's why I used the present perfect simple. So I say, I have ever seen. So I have seen in all my life, at all the times. You see? Contraction of I've seen is the past participle of the verb to see. I've ever seen, we have the contraction of I have, I've, we have seen, that is the past participle of the verb see. So I'm talking about present perfect form. You see? Number 5, I'm talking about the present perfect continuous. The answer is I've been sitting in this cold waiting room for 3 hours and I'm still waiting. It means the action is continue being done. That's the answer. Present perfect continuous. Not I've sat in the present perfect simple, right? Not this present perfect simple. Because in this situation, the action isn't over. The person is still there waiting in the waiting room. All right? Number 6, we are talking about something that is over, finished. They have decided to get married. Contraction of they've decided. I don't use the present perfect continuous because I say that they are very excited and happy. So the action is finished, concluded. They have decided that, and now they are happy about that. You see? So they are not deciding anymore. That's why I used present perfect simple. Now let's have pronunciation time. You're going to learn here how to identify the sentence stress in perfect forms, right? So you're going to listen to the 4 sentences and you're going to check which of the words in the underlined phrases are the stressed ones. Let's listen to them.
4.10 1,
They have been doing an important research project.
2,
Has he finished his psychology essay yet?
3,
How long have you been working at the university?
4,
The doctor has gone to the hospital. He's had an emergency.
So, which are the words in the underlined sentences here, the stressed ones? In number 1, we stress the word doing. So you emphasize they have been doing an important research project. In question number 2, finished is the stressed word here. Has he finished? Number 3, the question here, how long have you been working at the university? The emphasis is stressed in the word working. So when we have the present perfect continuous, pay attention. We emphasize the verbs in the ing. They are the most important ideas in the sentences, right? What about number 4? The doctor has gone to the hospital. So I have the emphasis in the word doctor, in the subject. The doctor has gone to the hospital. So the importance here is who practiced the action, who has gone to the hospital, right? And I emphasize the doctor, right? And then I finished by emphasizing he's had an emergency. Had it is emphasizing here the result of the action, right? So he has had an emergency. That's why he has gone to the hospital. That's the result of the action. All right? So let's check. Number 1, doing. 2, finished. 3, working. 4, doctor and had. Remember, we emphasize the words that are the most important ones in the sentences, right? Exercise number 5, we're going to choose the best options to complete the text, right? Let's listen and check the answers.
4.11.
To be honest, I've always preferred to complete tasks as soon as I'm given them. I've never liked to wait until the last minute to do important things, especially at work. This morning, I've already had a meeting with my boss, and he has asked me to prepare a sales presentation for next Monday. I've been preparing the presentation non-stop since the meeting. I would hate to wait until Sunday evening to start working on it. That would completely ruin my weekend.
Personally, I've always put off writing my college essays until just before the deadline. I did the same thing when I was in high school, and I still managed to get good grades every time. I think I'm one of those people who are most creative when they're under pressure. My final term paper's due next Wednesday, but I still haven't written anything. I've been planning it for the last 2 months, and I'm going to spend the next 5 days writing it, probably 24/7.
So let's pay attention to some details here. Number 5 and number 10, we have present perfect continuous. Here we are emphasizing the action. The action has been done and it continues up to the present moment. You see, the guy says, I've been preparing the presentation non-stop since the meeting. He hasn't stopped doing that, right? He's been doing right now. And number 10, the same way he says, I've been planning. So for the last 2 months, he has been doing the same thing. He has been planning. All right? The others are actions in the present perfect simple. Sometimes they're talking about situations that happened in the past and they are completed. And sometimes repeated actions like number 1, I've always preferred. Number 7 and number 8 both are in the simple past form. Here I'm mentioning the time. I say the time. I know when the action happened. In number 7, the action happened when I was in high school. And number 8, I say that I still manage to get good grades every time. So both actions represent the situation that is over, right? Pay attention to this video now and then we're gonna discuss about it, right?
Get the hell out that car! Get the hell out right now! I'm gonna tear you a new. Come on, get out! I'm gonna beat the. Hey, I didn't know it was you.
So, as you have just watched that video, you can see these pictures related to what happened there, right? And what do you think has happened in those pictures and in that video? So what you can see here in these pictures and the video that you have just watched are related to the word road rage. And what do you think the expression road rage means? Is this a problem where you live? Do we face situations like this here in the city? Road rage is an aggressive or angry behavior exhibited by motorists. These behaviors include rude and offensive gestures, verbal insults, physical threats, or dangerous driving methods. Most of the time, it has been caused by traffic jam, distraction, stress mainly, right? So, is road rage very common here in Manaus? Let's watch another video right now and let's pay attention to the conversation between the couple. They're talking about road rage. Attention to the expressions they use.
You won't believe what just happened.
What's wrong?
I was waiting at a traffic light, and I guess I was a bit distracted because I didn't move immediately when the light turned green.
That happens all the time.
But then the woman behind me gets out of her car and starts banging on my window, yelling at me.
No way.
I just drove off, but I'm still shaking.
Why are people so aggressive when they're driving?
I don't know.
Come, sit down.
I guess it is stressful. When you're driving, you're constantly under pressure, even if you're not aware of it.
It's true. I think there's more to it than that, though. Once I read a study that said if you think of your car as an extension of your personality, you're more likely to lose your temper on the road.
I'm not sure I follow.
If you see your car as part of yourself, then anything that puts your car at risk is like a threat to you, personally.
That may be true to a certain extent. But a lot of people who are normally calm and even-tempered can lose control of their emotions when they get behind the wheel.
Yeah, but why?
Perhaps it's because they try so hard to keep control of their feelings in their day-to-day lives.
No. Sorry, I don't get that.
Like, say your boss is rude to you, but you can't lose your job, so you keep quiet. You leave the office, and as soon as someone cuts you off, you take it out on the other driver who has nothing to do with your problem. You. But you can't lose your job, so you keep quiet. You leave the office, and as soon as someone cuts you off, you take it out on the other driver who has nothing to do with your problem.
That makes a lot of sense. My father is the sweetest man you'll ever meet, but he becomes a whole different person when he gets stuck in traffic.
And this sort of behavior is learned too, isn't it? Children see their parents yelling at other drivers and they think it's normal.
I hadn't thought of that.
Not to mention movies like Fast and Furious, which tend to show aggressive driving as something exciting, almost positive.
I think I'll stick to walking.
Good idea.
So attention to the question about the video. How did Abigail react to the woman's behavior? Remember, she got really stressed, right? And how did she react? How did she behave? Letter A, she got out of her car and started yelling. Or B, she didn't get out of her car and kept driving. Remember? So Abigail didn't get out of her car and she kept driving. Letter B. The other woman's reaction was terrible. She started yelling. Remember, yell means to cry, scream in an aggressive way, right? Remember some expressions that they said during the conversation? The conversation builder is about responding to arguments. When you are agreeing, take a look at these examples. That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of that, so you agree with the person, right? When you disagree, when you are disagreeing but in a polite way, examples do we have here? I think there is more to it than that, though. That may be true to a certain extent, but and when you respond to arguments by asking for clarification, it means like, sorry, I don't get that. I don't understand that, right? Another, I'm not sure I follow. You see, some of these expressions we use to respond to arguments. Let's go ahead with more examples. Take a look at the conversation between Ben and Abigail that they show they agree or disagree in a polite way. Let's check the exercise. So here we have a conversation, part of that video that you have just watched. And take a look at the expressions that they agree or that they disagree in a polite way. Remember? So we have, it's true. I think there's more to it than that, though. You see, in a polite way, you say that you don't agree totally. All right? Another way, you can say, I'm not sure I follow. Here, you don't understand what the person means, right? And then we have, that may be true to a certain extent, but here it is another polite way to disagree. Okay? And the last one, you can say here, no, sorry, I don't get that. You don't understand what the person means. You are asking for clarification. So here are some examples of the expressions we are learning about. Now take a look at this skill. The ability today we're going to learn is about describing memorable experiences. When we describe a memorable experience, we use various strategies to maintain the listener's interest. Creating suspense. Example, you're not going to believe. Another, you'll never guess what happened today. Or describing your reaction. I couldn't believe my eyes. When we respond, we can show interest by guessing how the story will continue, like, let me guess, showing surprise, no way, or showing empathy. That must have been so awkward. I bet it was really uncomfortable. So, right now you're gonna watch the second part of the video about road rage and you're going to identify some of these expressions to describe memorable experiences. Let's pay attention.
Hi.
You're not going to believe what happened today.
What?
You know, I started that short course on safe driving this morning.
After our conversation the other day.
Yeah. You'll never guess who was there.
Who?
Our friend. You know, the angry driver.
No way. Did she recognize you?
As soon as she saw me, I couldn't believe my eyes. And it gets worse. The only empty seat was right next to her.
That must have been so awkward.
Tell me about it. And what was the first topic of the lesson?
Let me guess. Road rage?
Exactly. He showed us a video with some very alarming statistics, but I was trying so hard not to make eye contact with my friend, I couldn't pay attention.
I bet it was really uncomfortable.
It was. And she came up to me at the end of the lesson.
Are you serious? Was she angry?
No, she apologized. She said she'd just been fired, so she wasn't thinking straight.
Which kind of explains it.
Totally. Listen, I better go.
See you later. And drive safely.
Thanks.
To finish lesson 4D, pay attention to these pictures. You're going to choose one of these pictures and you're going to describe a memorable experience around it and create a short dialogue. In this dialogue, you're going to describe what has happened and what the person has experienced. Or you can tell a story about your own memorable experience, but you have to follow the steps below. Pay attention. Number 1. Create suspense by using the expressions learned from Unit 4, Lesson 4D. Number 2. Show agreement, disagreement in a polite way and ask for clarification about arguments. And number 3, you're gonna use the grammar structures, past forms and present perfect forms. Be creative, use vocabulary that you have learned, right? And write a short dialogue about that, a memorable experience. Thank you for your participation and your attention, right? See you in the next video class.